The new Argentine economy minister suggests a commitment to austerity despite the recent PASO elections. Barbados remains committed to a peaceful solution to the situation in Venezuela and is ready to host talks. And the German Chancellor says there's no need to reopen Brexit talks over the border between the north of Ireland and the Republic. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South. I am Doris Polo. The newly appointed Argentine Economy Minister Jorge Hernan Lacunza has indicated that his priority will be to ensure the austerity measures imposed in conjunction with the International Monetary Fund are guaranteed. Just like the President Mauricio Macri, Lacunza blamed the electoral process for the peso's plunge after the ruling conservative Cambiemos coalition lost to the progressive Frente de Todos by a margin of 15%. The new economy minister said the country's central bank will take measures to ensure that the peso doesn't fall against the US dollar further than it did last week.
The president gave me a central mandate, not exclusionary, but leading all other objectives, of which there are many. But the principal one is to guarantee the stability of the currency during this electoral period.
The International Monetary Fund says it will visit Argentina soon. A delegation had been expected this week to assess the $57 billion bailout, but the visit and the deal has been put in doubt by the political and economic turmoil following President Mauricio Macri's defeat in primary elections. Sabrina Roth reports.
Both the newly sworn-in Finance Minister Hernan Lacunza as well as the President of the Central Bank, Guaido Sanlaris, have assured the stability of the currency exchange rate. They said the dollar is at a competitive rate and above the balance rate. Any pressure to raise the rate will not be due to real reasons, and there will be intervention to guarantee its stability. Lacunza said that the leaps of the currency rate are harmful for the economy, which is surprising because President Mauricio Macri devalued the dollar as soon as he took office to 40%. Over his tenure, it has gone up almost 500%. Lacunza said for decades, Argentinians have lived in poverty. He seems to forget the 2001 crisis that left thousands in destitution, and that the Kirchner government was the one to recover the economy. Lacunza and Macri have said that the opposition is responsible for the current situation, although Fernandez has guaranteed that he will not implement the default and he will honor the debt. Let's remember that the government is the only one in charge because the opposition has no way of doing anything for the economy. With the IMF, Lacunza said they will fulfill their obligations. On its behalf, the IMF said they are closely following the Argentinian case and that the mission will soon visit the country. They have to come to make a fifth revision before the September disbursement.
That was Sabrina Roth with that report. The Bolivian government says there's been a sharp reduction in the wildfires that have devastated 500,000 hectares in the last 2 weeks in the north of the Amazon state of Santa Cruz. Around 1,000 firefighters from the military and the police have been battling the flames.
The fires are caused in the dry season by farmers slashing and burning. It's the traditional and cheapest way for them to clear their plots. After a first flight over the main affected regions, President Evo Morales said there'd been a sharp reduction in the blaze.
We have flown over some of the fires. The initial information confirmed by local residents and the authorities is that the fires have reduced by 70%, but there are still fires, as I saw myself.
The President oversaw the distribution of supplies to the affected campesinos. 3 more helicopters have been sent, in addition to the 2 already working, and about 1,000 firefighters, troops, and police have arrived in the affected areas from La Paz, Cochabamba, and Santa Cruz.
We are told that there are many concentrations of fire. That was my fear, and I've been asking the technicians. They advance a few kilometers, go out, then reignite somewhere else. We saw this in Beni and Pando, and it's very difficult. You can't control that, but the teams are working very well. I congratulate all the volunteers from the City Hall and elsewhere who have gone from Santa Cruz to work alongside the troops and the police.
The Bolivian government has ruled out for the moment asking for international help, given the reduction in the extent of the wildfires. But official reports estimate that about 500,000 hectares of dry Chiquitano woodland, a local variety that is almost the only one of its kind on the planet, have been completely destroyed.
And our correspondent Freddy Morales has sent this update on the fires.
The Defense Minister, Javier Zavaleta, speaking from the scene of the fires in the east of the country, said that we cannot talk about the fires coming to an end. The situation is similar to that on Monday, when President Evo Morales said that 70% of the fires have been extinguished. Today we were told that 3 military regiments have been sent to 10 communities where the fires have been most intense, with brigades of 400 troops going to each of these 10 communities. 4 helicopters have continued to pour water onto the flames from the air. They also continue to deliver food and water to campesino communities in the region, many of which have lost their crops and their cattle. Classes have been suspended in 57 communities around Roboré, close to the border with Brazil, because of the thick smoke that has descended on that whole area. We were told that there are now about 17,000 separate fires burning in the whole of Bolivia, and that 11,000 of those are in the province of Santa Cruz. We should add that it's not only Santa Cruz and the other regions where there are fires that the air quality has been affected. Here in La Paz, too, at an altitude of 3,600 meters above sea level, the smoke has also been felt, and visibility has been reduced across the Bolivian highlands, or altiplano. So that gives you an idea of the scale of the problem that is affecting almost all of Bolivia.
That was Freddy Morales with that report. Shifting gears now, a court in El Salvador has acquitted the rape survivor Evelyn Hernandez, accused of killing her stillborn baby. The 21-year-old was previously convicted of intentionally inducing an abortion and sentenced to 30 years in prison, of which she had already served 3 years. In February, the Supreme Court annulled the original sentence over a lack of evidence and ordered a retrial with a new judge. El Salvador has one of the world's harshest abortion laws. Almost 150 women have been sentenced to up to 40 years in prison in similar cases between 2000 and 2014.
We can't lose sight. There are more women who are being held due to injustice. We are advancing, and we want, as we manage to obtain Evelyn's freedom, to continue fighting to free the others. The judge, we feel, has been just in his resolution. He has said there would be no way of proving the crime, and that is why she was freed. He has said it was a tough birth, as many women who are behind bars have had.
Police have shot dead the hijacker who had taken 37 people hostage inside a bus in Rio de Janeiro. The authorities said a sniper brought down the man and that all the passengers had been released. Police say the man had seized a bus on the bridge between Rio and Niterói at around 6 a.m. local time, carrying gasoline and threatening to set the vehicle alight. So far, they haven't said if they've discovered the motive for the hijacking. Andre Vieira reports from Rio on the latest updates from the hijack.
We are at the Maua Plaza in the center of Rio de Janeiro, and from here we can see the Rio-Niterói bridge where the hijack took place. It's one of the most important bridges where many people from the metropolitan region arrive into the city to work. The hijack began in the morning when a man boarded a bus on the middle of this bridge. Reportedly, he told passengers he was a policeman. According to investigators, he was a traffic officer, and his name is William Augusto Nascimento. 37 people were held at the beginning, and after some negotiations, the hijacker released 6 of them. So for most of the time the hijack lasted, 31 people were being held. The man left the bus to continue negotiations with the police, and when he was about to board it again, he was shot by a police sniper. It's important to understand the context of public security in the state of Rio de Janeiro. Once the police had fired several shots and killed the hijacker, the governor of the state celebrated as if it were a football match, something that has been condemned on social media. Lawmakers have also condemned the governor for taking advantage of this tragic moment to justify his security policies and the use of snipers in poor communities like favelas, which have killed a number of people. In the first 6 months of this year, the figure of those killed by the police has increased by 46%. President Jair Bolsonaro also said he wasn't sad the hijacker was killed, boosting his security policies and the debate he has opened on easing gun ownership in Brazil.
Coming up, Jamaica sees a record number of dengue fever cases. Don't go away. Welcome back. Barbados says it remains committed to hosting talks aimed at finding a peaceful solution to the situation in Venezuela. Reports state that Barbados' Foreign Affairs Minister Jerome Walcott has said that the Mia Mottley-led administration is still willing to host negotiations between representatives of the Bolivarian government and the right-wing opposition. The two sides met in Barbados last month. After several days of discussions, 6 points were established in the agenda of the Barbados dialogue, with President Nicolas Maduro declaring that those talks had concluded successfully. A hearing in Haiti's lower house is set to resume on Wednesday to decide whether to proceed with an impeachment process for President Jovenel Moïse. He's accused of embezzling millions of dollars in funds meant for social projects. The legislature's first attempt at conducting impeachment proceedings was abandoned due to security concerns after protesters clashed with security forces outside the parliament. Shortly after, a second session scheduled for August 12th could not take place since a quorum could not be reached. Political analysts say the rejection of this motion is likely to fuel further tensions in Haiti, and it may even prolong the ratification of the new government, which would delay the implementation of emergency measures to overcome the country's economic crisis. Jamaica has reached a record number of dengue fever outbreaks, with more than 140 notifications just last month. That's according to Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jacqueline Biasor Mackenzie, who lamented the alarming figures that have reached the Ministry of Health. Dr. Biasor Mackenzie says for the comparative period, July 2018, the figure was between 20 and 30. Last week, the Pan American Health Organization, or PAHO, warned of what it described as the complex situation of dengue in Latin America and the Caribbean. The Anglophone leader in Cameroon, Sisiku Ayuk Tabe, and 9 of his followers have been given life sentences by a military court. They were convicted of complicity in terrorism, insurrection, and hostility against the state, among others. Tabe has been campaigning for the creation of an independent state called Ambazonia, made up of Cameroon's English-speaking northwest and southwest regions. The Anglophone crisis started in 2016 when lawyers and teachers went on strike over the use of French in courts and schools. Meanwhile, members of Cameroon's English-speaking community have expressed disappointment with the ruling. Residents in the English-speaking Douagla area said they are worried the life sentence given to Tabe and his followers will derail ongoing dialogue in the country.
Sentencing these leaders is for me a way of putting on the brakes. It's a barrier, and it's saying that this dialogue will never really take place. Will never take place for them. So I think that, given the way the government is behaving, dialogue is not on the agenda.
In South Africa, 2 economic freedom fighters MPs have resigned over accusations that they received money from President Cyril Ramaphosa. In her resignation letter, Tebogo Mokoena stated that she received 2 payments of $2,600 for personal use between 2017 and 2019. And Kagisang Mogosi said she had also accepted the same sum of money, a decision that was related to personal situations she had. And EFF Vice President Floyd Shivambu commended the 2 lawmakers for voluntarily stepping down. He said their resignation, or their decision to resign rather, for the sake of the party represents superior levels of political discipline. Authorities in the Democratic Republic of Congo have confirmed a new Ebola case outside the epicenter in the northeast corner of the country. The latest case was reported in the town of Walikale, located more than 200 kilometers from the city of Goma, one of the cities where Ebola cases have been reported so far. The new cases presents more challenges to the efforts to contain the outbreak, which has killed almost 2,000 people since August last year. Now, Burundi has started monitoring its shared border with the Democratic Republic of Congo following new confirmed Ebola cases northeast of the neighboring country. Authorities visited a post at the border to check sanitary controls to ensure that the virus will not find its way into Burundi. These confirmed cases have revived fears that the highly contagious disease could cross the porous borders.
We were accompanied by representatives of international organizations who are closely monitoring health issues. And this is quite normal, because if Burundi were to be hit by cases of Ebola, we understand that this is a problem that would have come from elsewhere. So Ebola is not a national issue, it's an international issue.
In other news, Algerian students have continued protests for the 6th consecutive month, calling for social, economic and political reform. Students from different universities once again took to the streets as they demand change. They have also been calling for the removal of government officials aligned to former President Abdelaziz Bouteflika, including the interim president and current prime minister. After the break, the situation on board the open arms migrant rescue vessel deteriorates. Stay with us. Welcome back. The German Chancellor Angela Merkel has said that practical solutions to the Irish border after Britain's exit from the European Union will be considered, providing that the North of Ireland's Good Friday Peace Agreement is ensured. Merkel added that there is no need to revisit the withdrawal agreement, despite the new British Prime Minister's posturing.
The British Prime Minister Boris Johnson referred to the backstop issue, but that isn't new. The British Parliament has also addressed it. At the moment, we have a practical arrangement on how to preserve the Good Friday Agreement and at the same time define the borders of the European Union's internal market. We would not need the backstop anymore. This means we would naturally think about practical solutions.
Italy looks set for early elections after the Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte announced he is handing in his resignation to President Sergio Mattarella. It comes after the leader of Nationalist League Party Matteo Salvini tabled a no-confidence motion against him, withdrawing support for his own populist coalition government. In response, Conte called Salvini irresponsible and said he had created a new political crisis in Italy for personal and party interests. Mattarella, as head of state, could ask Conte to stay and try to find an alternative majority in parliament or accept his resignation. But it is more likely that the president will dissolve parliament, setting the stage for a new general election as early as October.
Today I must conclude that the decision of the League that presented a non-confidence motion and unambiguously declarations and behaviors put in place in recent days and weeks require me to interrupt this government experience. Obviously, I will listen very carefully to all the interventions that would follow, but complete this institutional transition in the most linear and consequent way. After the end of the parliamentary debate, I will go to President Sergio Mattarella to officially offer him my resignation as Prime Minister.
Migrants on board the open arms humanitarian rescue ship stranded off the coast of Italy have attempted to swim ashore. According to open arms officials, at least 9 people threw themselves into the water and the situation is out of control on board. The boat is carrying 100 migrants who were rescued 3 weeks ago and has been anchored near the island of Lampedusa, hoping to get permission to dock. Italy's Interior Minister Matteo Salvini has so far refused to grant the ship a pass, but on Monday he let 8 migrants disembark after they developed health problems. Our correspondent, Sergio Rodrigo, has more.
The humanitarian ship Open Arms continues to await for a response from the European Union states, which have so far refused to take any legal action against Italy for infringing the right to the sea and the rights of these people who are still blocked from entering the port of Lampedusa. According to Open Arms, at least 10 people have tried to swim to the island Lampedusa, as the ship with about 100 migrants is stuck about 800 meters from the coast. They want an urgent response from the EU countries, and they insist that the solution is to disembark the migrants in Lampedusa and later take them on by plane. The Spanish government has offered the port of Mallorca and is asking the NGO to sail to Spain. It has even offered a naval vessel to take them there, but Open Arms says that it's not the solution. The ship has been stuck at the sea for more than 20 days, and the people on board are suffering seasickness, panic and anxiety. The International Migration Organization says the situation in the Mediterranean must be dealt with. Its representatives in Europe and the United Nations have told EU countries they should receive the migrants, not only from the Open Arms ship, but the 300 people who remain on board another vessel that is also waiting for a safe port.
That was Sergio Rodrigo with that report. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson has criticized the United States military's recent test of a cruise missile, saying it will trigger a new arms race. Geng Shuang says the test would lead to an escalation of military confrontation, which will have a serious negative impact on the international and regional security situation. He adds that the test shows the real purpose of the United States' recent withdrawal from the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. The U.S. formally pulled out of the treaty on August 2nd after accusing Russia of violating the agreement for years. Moscow denied the allegations. Staying in China, the country has denied a report by the Wall Street Journal, which alleges that Huawei staff helped the governments of Uganda and Zambia to spy on people. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman says China has actually enhanced bilateral cooperation with these countries in areas of security to help build smart and safe cities.
The report by the Wall Street Journal is quoting words out of context, full of loopholes and devoid of the support by facts and evidence as an international mainstream media outlet. It makes people concerned about the paper's professional standard by releasing such irresponsible report. African countries know only too well what they want and care most about their own interests and security. They need no one else to worry about that. Any attempt to viciously smear China and deliberately undermine China-Africa cooperation is destined to no avail.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for Telesur English. I'm Doris Polo. Thank you so much for watching.